You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Welcome back, everyone. I get to start us off this week, but before I do, we have a pretty special guest with us this week.
Oh, we do indeed.
We have
sort of special.
Well, the one and only host of our anniversary special, Mr. Brett Sieberer, a professional naturalist in his own right.
More or less. I think that's what some folks have referred to me as. But yeah, very excited about being here on a show that isn't the anniversary show. I will do my best to stick to, I guess, maybe a more strange topic than it is my normal, just strange questions. But
you're not here as the quiz. You're not here as the quiz master. You're here as a naturalist sharing information.
Right, and so I'll do the best to stick to that. I can't make any promises.
Does this mean that on the anniversary show, which I assume we're going to have you back to be our quiz master, that we get to ask you questions about your topic?
I mean, that would be fair game. I think, though, in order to probably make it something where there's a little bit more meat on the bone, if you will, I'm going to have to be a special guest a couple times just so you have a few things to pull from. Otherwise, just a one. Unless this show goes so horribly awry, then you're like, well, it's best we leave him in his original role. So.
His natural habitat. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Sounds good.
Let's hear it, Rachel. What do you got?
All right. So this week, I think I have something pretty special. So we've talked a couple times on the show about flight, and we've talked about insects. We've talked about a variety of all of those things. Oh, Kirk is very intrigued.
We've talked about like flying snakes and flying spiders. So
exactly.
I'm like, oh God, what else is going to be flying that we don't want to fly?
Pigs?
Ooh. There would be some bets.
It's still good.
That would be down. No, not pigs, unfortunately. But we've talked about all of these different flying things and the different methods that different organisms use to fly.
Yeah.
But this week, I wanted to talk a little bit about like altitude when it comes to flight. And
so how
a specific
high things fly.
Exactly. How high things fly. Now, generally speaking, there are, we think of birds as generally being the high flyers, and you would be correct. Generally speaking, they are the things that reach the highest altitudes, you know? Like the griffin vulture is the highest flying bird at 37,000 feet.
Get out. 37,000 feet?
37,000 feet. Which is...
How many Rachels is that?
So many Rachels.
I mean, that's... if you look, it's like 7,000 or 8,000 feet above the top of Mount Everest.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so you're looking up, and there, you can barely breathe, and there's a bird gliding by 7,000 feet above your head.
Their lung capacity and ability to take in oxygen has got to be just off the charts.
Oh yeah, they are a giant bird too. But they actually have. I'm not talking about griffin vultures this week, but while researching this did come up. They actually have like a special hemoglobin that helps with oxygen intake. So it came up. So birds are insane and crazy, and they can go really, really high. But I wanted to ask you, we've talked about it on the show, but how high do you think insects can go?
Ooh.
Oh.
Boy.
This feels like a trick question.
It might be.
I mean, I got to imagine it's something like a dragonfly that's going to go high enough, right? It's got to be something bigger that has the capability to
Are we talking, we're talking flying. I mean, I can imagine some really small stuff that could get just completely swept up.
Swept up, yeah.
In air currents and end up just, hanging out at 60,000 feet or something ridiculous like that.
As insects want to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to say higher than birds,
Ooh.
but maybe not on their own accord.
Whoa, higher than I'll give you a number. I'm gonna go 10,000 feet. Completely arbitrary. 10,000 feet up. Dragonflies.
All right. Okay.
Well, okay, I'm gonna use some science here because I'm gonna try to back up my answer. I know.
Okay.
Here's what makes it hard. You see, in order to know if they went higher than birds, we'd have to have a way to sample the air at that height. And it gets very tricky because, like, say, airplanes, anything more than a commercial jet, you're not really getting above 30, I want to say it's 34,000 feet.
35,000, yeah, something
even,
like that.
Even some of the, classified military stuff where they won't say exactly how high it goes, you're probably looking at 60, 70,000 feet. And I don't think they're really, doing a lot of, taking a lot of research projects for grad
They don't
students.
got to
with them
sweep
at
that
height.
out the
Now,
window at that height.
No.
Huh?
You can send balloons up very high, though, to the edge of space and take air samples, and I could see them doing an air sample that high and find. I know they found bacteria and stuff at those heights, so gosh, you want me to put a number on it? I might. What did you say, Brett?
Yeah, I said
10,000.
10,000. So go Price is Right and go 10,001 just to.
I'm gonna go 10,001. Although I'm gonna guess it's more like 50.
Gosh, I hate you.
More. Okay. So, generally speaking, most insects are found at 12,000-ish feet, okay?
For like a top
Like when
height.
you say, hold on, when you
And
you're talking
height.
about that's the sort of the top height for where you don't find much above that.
You don't find a
Because
ton
like
above
most
that,
insects,
yeah.
most insects are not at that height.
No.
Like
Yeah.
house flies are
So,
not flying. They're like
when they
4
were
feet off the
doing-
ground.
Right. So when they were doing like when Charles Lindbergh was flying over the Atlantic, he actually was helping conduct some insect studies way back in
Oh, quite cool.
starting in
Dang.
1926. And so he was flying over Greenland at like 7,000 to 12,000 feet, and he was had sticky glass slides out,
Okay, all right.
and was able to actually collect insects at those heights. But the highest,
I can verify that. A lot of insects fly about 4 feet off the ground.
I
based
can
on,
verify that as
what
well.
gets deposited on my windshield.
exactly. But for the most part,
Similar process.
exactly. But there was a single termite that was trapped on an airplane in 1961, and it was captured at 19,000 feet. So that's the record.
Okay, so when I said 10,001, I think thanks for the suggestion, Brett. I will.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Technically, yeah.
But I still stand by this idea that maybe there could be stuff higher. So I reserve the right to have my whatever 50 or 60, whatever I said.
I mean,
I think someday we could find something up there.
they could.
So
If
you
the
said
winds are
this.
strong enough, anything's possible.
You said this thing was stuck to a plane. Yes.
That one was collected in an insect trap. Yeah, from a plane.
So are we certain the plane collected the insect at 19,000 feet, or is there any chance this thing collected it on the way up while it was on the ground?
That is a great question. That particular plane was a 1961 study by J.L. Gressett. The trap itself was, and the flight was to sample air up at height, so not down on the ground. So I'm
So in
hoping
theory,
that
if
they
the trap
controlled
opened. Sure.
Yeah, they controlled for those
I hope there
variables.
wasn't one termite like hanging out on the door the whole time going, ah!
It's the worst.
Ah!
Legs
Yeah.
just
And the door
flapping
opens.
in
Oh, I
the
get to go
breeze.
inside.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. Well,
That'd be the hope.
well, apparently, like they that particular flight collected 1,610 insects, and most
Okay, so there
of
were
them,
others. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so there were others. That one was just at the highest height. but 97% of those insects were alive and undamaged. And remaining 2%, so there's 3% left from all of that. 2% were alive but damaged, and only 1% was dead.
I can't imagine like hitting an airplane at that speed at that altitude and being like, no, I'm cool.
Right? That'd be crazy.
I'm good.
Yeah. And the thing that really like got me onto this was the fact that I saw this a while ago. It's called the insect superhighway. And towards the equator, it could be anywhere from like 6 billion bugs, because generally speaking, it's not just flying insects who are up that high. It is anything that is small and light enough to catch the breeze and follow the turbulence.
Right.
But they found bumblebees at 18,000 feet, which is wild to me.
A bumblebee?
Bumblebee.
Like, I feel like they don't get more than like a foot off the ground sometimes, you know?
I know. But a bumblebee.
That's...
Yeah.
You know, I guess bumblebees get sucked up in tornadoes too, you know?
They do. Right. But I will say, like, they were... Okay. I said 18,000 feet. So those bumblebees were found at Mount Everest at above 18,000 feet. They were still, like... elevation-wise. Yeah.
Okay. That's a little different than
that is a little
free floating
different,
up in
but the
air.
rest of them
So you're just
are
living on a mountain.
I want to say, so wait. It was a
Pretty
bumblebee
much.
that was living on Everest?
at
Yes.
18,000 feet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at 18,000 feet. However, they were
I
able
mean, that's
to...
sort of like if a human jumps on the side of Everest, you're like, humans were flying at 18,000 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
And two.
Yeah.
And two.
Well, they were able to take those bumblebees and subject them to like the air velocity and like the thinness of the atmosphere, and they were able to still fly at 29,000 feet. So
I suppose that is a good point, that it's like, you know, even if they're not, they're only 2 feet off the ground, they are still, like you're saying, flying in that very thin, low oxygen air. So it's kind of the same as flying just over the ocean.
In some ways.
right,
Yeah,
it's just they have a place that they can set
Okay.
down to rest
All
as
right,
well.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm coming around to it.
I mainly just wanted to talk about the insect superhighway this week because I've heard about it before, and doing a little bit of research from the NPR and there's an article on the NPR as well as the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences.
Okay.
They had some really good articles to like be able to read, and I've heard about this before, and I wanted to verify and like see if it was actually a thing and share it, because I find it wild, because like you all were saying, I don't really expect insects to be flying much more than like a couple feet above the ground.
Yeah.
Maybe
you see
like
dragonflies in the prairie up a ways
tree.
and kind of zip-zapping around, but not thousands of feet in the air kind of thing. So.
Exactly. So I'm like, I guess it makes sense, because there are insects that migrate too, you know?
Yeah.
They're wild.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So that's what I have for you all this week. We're going to take a quick break.
Cool.
And when we return, we will have Mr. Brett Sieberer.
I'm so excited.
Ooh.
Yay!
So we are now back, and it is my turn. So I've got 3 animals. I need to know eat, ride. Just kidding. That's not what we're doing this week. That's not what we're doing this week.
Oh, boy.
But I do.
I'm
need
fully
you
ready
for-
to play that game.
I do need you for a moment to pretend you are an animal, which probably shouldn't be hard because, well,
We are
you
animals.
You are. I want you, though,
Well
now
played.
to pretend you are an animal who communicates almost entirely with sound. But the sound you're making either isn't heard or recognized by other animals of your species. Where does that put you?
That feels useless. I guess maybe feeling the vibrations of
But-
this.
Yeah.
Like you can't hear the sound, but can you
Do you want to know where that physically puts us, or like what sort of mindset does that
The
put us into? What
mindset,
kind
like
of animal?
if other
I'm
members
lonely.
of your species, that's odd. That's a perfect, I think, word for this, and leads into 52. And I'll explain in a moment what 52 is and why this is important.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I thought the number was 42.
It's 52.
So that's the
Oh,
meaning
that's
of the universe. Yeah.
Yep, that's the
Nope,
meaning. of
52.
the
This is
universe.
even Rachel. This is even bigger.
Ooh,
Yeah,
it's
by
52.
10.
Okay.
So 52's story kind of starts with the Cold War. So the United States set up this massive sound surveillance system in the ocean, a whole network of hydrophones trying to track Soviet subs, right? They're trying to keep an...
Yeah, we talked about this on the episode about the mysterious underwater sounds. It was not that long ago. So
Yeah, and so,
Same one.
and that was it. As they started listening, yes, they heard subs, but so many other sounds that were coming out that they didn't have any idea. Some that they just attributed it to be some sort of crazy, bizarro monsters that lived in the depths of the oceans. But some of
Right.
these folks associated with this, it's called, the acronym was SOSUS, for the Sound Surveillance System.
Yep.
They knew enough that what they were hearing was something that marine biologists, oceanographers, they would want to hear this kind of stuff. But of course, it was all classified. Well, as the Cold War kind of slowly sputtered out, they decided to share these archives with oceanographers. They said, hey, why don't you start listening to some of this, some really bizarre things, let us know what you think. One particular oceanographer, whale extraordinaire, by the name of William Watkins, got a hold of these recordings. Now, he spent a lot of time listening to recordings of, various whales. And as he started listening to these, yes, the humpback whales, the blue whales, the fin whales, stuff that typically is the 15 to 30 hertz range, which as humans, I think the lowest we got is 20 or so, 20 hertz.
20. Yeah. If
Yeah.
you're lucky,
Right. But that's super low. We're talking low vibration-y, where most of these big whales are super low. There was one that he picked up at 52 hertz. One. And as he went through
Whoa.
these recordings and he was tracking these things, one whale continued to come out at 52. And it didn't make any sense because everything else was, was completely different. And so he started then following this whale. And from beacon to beacon, year after year, 12 years he followed this whale up in the Gulf of Alaska.
wow.
It was where this was hanging out.
Okay.
And then in 2004,
I love science.
yeah, right. So in 2004,
Can you imagine
'cause-
being a scientist? Sorry, just imagining a scientist just going like, I'm gonna follow this one whale, and that's gonna be that's my project.
Right. And so he kind of likened this whale trying to talk to maybe other whales, kind of sounding like Mickey Mouse. High-pitched, squeaky voice and not making sense.
Hey, everybody.
And of course, he picked up this stuff. It was late 80s, early 90s. In 2004, he passes. Now, he had published a ton of other papers, but he didn't publish anything on this one particular whale because he didn't feel he knew enough information about it. He didn't have enough conclusive
okay.
evidence for him to say, it's a blue whale, it's a fin whale. So he kind of left it. Well, some of his colleagues took his work and eventually in 2004, shortly thereafter, published it. And over time, over the next handful of years, it started to kind of leak out that there was this seemingly one whale by its lonesome calling to maybe no one in the ocean. And that story started to grab people. They're like, well,
Yep.
hold on a second.
Yeah.
Because Rachel, you nailed it. You was like the loneliness. That was
Yeah,
I know
because you're the
we
only one. You can't talk to anybody.
well, that's
Like,
it. And I know we anthropomorphize a lot, but at the same time, it doesn't take a lot of research for you to kind of see that animals have. Your dog. You know when your dog is happy. You know when your dog is sad. You can tell these things. And so to think that other animals, and scientists have done research too with animals and brains and looking for the areas of the brains that elicit certain feelings and emotions, and whales having such huge complex brains, it does not take a leap to think that this particular whale could be experiencing those things. So anyone who'd ever felt alone, anyone ever felt like an outsider was immediately attracted to this whale. The
Right.
super popular K-pop band BTS recorded a
Oh,
song
yeah.
in 2015 called Whalian 52, and it was about this whale shouting as loud as it could into the void where no one could hear it. And so I mean, message boards.
It's like a metaphor for TikTok.
Right, pretty much. This thing really took on a life of its own. Well, in 2015, a professor from Cornell by the name of Christopher Clark basically said, listen, folks, the other whales can hear this guy. They know he's there. They're probably just not sure how to respond because it's at such a frequency that they're not used to hearing. One other individual who, kind of a part of the masses who picked up on this and became really fixated on it was a man by the name of Josh Zeman, who happened to be a documentary film maker. And he thought, you know what? How great would it be if we went and looked out and found the loneliest whale in the world? And so he was told by scientists, listen, this is like looking for a needle in the haystack, but your odds of finding the needle are greater. And so,
exactly. The ocean should be real big.
Well, right. But then you think about it. You're looking for an animal that's maybe one of the largest that's ever lived on the planet, and yet it's still being told to you that the needle is going to be easier to find. He got a Kickstarter going.
Yeah, because it's huge.
Yeah.
Whales are giant, but there's a lot of whales in the ocean.
There's a lot of ocean, yeah.
So he raised $400,000 to hire, a captain and a boat, scientists, tech people, because they had drones, bunch of money. We're going to go do this. And then a couple scientists said, hey, by the way, this was now late 20-teens, 2015, 2016, as he's trying to put this together. They said, we have not heard from this whale in 10 years. It most likely is dead. And you're going, well, hold on. File that in the...
I just raised $400,000. No one mentioned this fact.
Information that would have been useful to me. Information would have been useful to me yesterday. That's, yep. But so then he started pleading with the SOSIS folks, like, hey, I need you to look. I want help. This is what I'm trying to do.
Come on, have you heard this?
He was really getting nowhere with these folks. Eventually, a few scientists picked up on his plea, kind of put a call out, and he gets a phone call from this guy that said, hey, we found your whale. And he's like, no way, the 52 hertz? And he's like, yup. He said, Gulf of Alaska? And the guy goes, nope. We're off the coast of California, not far from L.A. Get
what?
Okay, all right.
So
that's way easier to get to.
Right, and that's it. And so now this thing is really, it's on. And one of the guys he's having come with is a guy who has spent 30 years studying blue whales. And so this guy knows where they are. He knows, behaviors. He's perfect. So they got 7 days to go on this trip to go find this. Now, this guy that he's bringing with, the blue whale specialist, back in 2004, tagged a whale and got a skin sample. And it was one that when he tagged it, it was with other blues, but he said it didn't look necessarily like a blue whale. And he goes, and it wasn't a fin whale. His thought was, this thing might be some sort of hybrid. Well, sure enough, they send the stuff back to the lab, 50-50 hybrid blue and fin whale. So this thing's been tagged, and they've been continuing to follow it since 2004. So there's data on this whale. And so this guy's like, hey, there's a chance that this is the whale that you're hearing. So now everyone, I mean, it was so much fun. I rented the documentary.
So when you say tagged, they have like a radio transmitter on it? Like they could track it down whenever they want? Oh, okay.
Yep. And so cool. I watched the documentary on this last night. I was super, I'm like, well, I gotta know everything there is to know about this whale now. So it was fun to see these scientists, though, who'd been doing this for decades, still super excited about finding those answers, right? And so they go out. Their plan was to try to find, a blue whale and throw a tag on it to hopefully track it so that it would lead them to potentially other blue whales so they could, be in a bigger group, have a better chance, better odds, all that kind of stuff. And, they get one. And then eventually, I think at some point, the tag falls off during these 7 days, and they recover it. Not having a ton of luck. bits and pieces. They had blue whales that got close, but they didn't quite tag them. They're putting out beacons every now and again, and they're listening, so they're picking up other sounds. They're just doing everything they can in this area. And again, small but still massive area of the ocean trying to find something.
Right.
It gets to day 7, and they're kind of just, you could tell these people are defeated. They feel they're not super happy about this. They head out to this spot that was super windy, but they felt it was going to be, if they could get out there, it was going to be a good spot. And they ran into blue whale after blue whale. Some of the scientists said they'd never seen anything like it. And the giddiness and the excitement, it was amazing. They're throwing beacons out. They're listening. I mean, everyone's got fingers crossed. And then the screen that they're watching sonar on, picking up these sounds, goes completely red. And they look up out the window, and sure enough, it's a giant freight ship coming through. And then they start talking about how this place where so many of these whales use as kind of a highway also happens to be one of the busiest shipping highways in the world. And these freight ships are completely, and they got into this part about how much they reduce the capability for these whales to talk. I mean, whale sound, by the way, that travels at times up to 13,000 miles, which this calling to each other, it's nuts. But they said it reduces it so much so that not only do they increase volume, but also frequency they're calling. And it really puts a lot of stress on the whales. And the one thing that made me laugh, I laughed out loud when I was reading it. So after 9/11, they were doing a study in the waters off the coast of California. Remember, after 9/11, nothing was taken off, airplane-wise, boats weren't leaving. I mean, there was a couple weeks of just nothing. Well, they were doing, they found that the stress hormone levels found in whale feces off the coast of California during that time dropped precipitously. And I'm going, wait, hold up. Wow. Whale feces. Is this a
Where are
water
you finding
sample?
that?
Because it's substrate floating around. If it's a straight water sample, I get it. But if you're like having to net some sort of clean pinch floater out in the ocean and then pick through it, I don't know what that looks like.
That's what undergrads do in the lab.
We can find you pictures, I guess.
I probably, right? And so basically this day 7, when they thought they were going to get close, gets completely shut down by this freighter. And then that's it. And so the scientists are kind of crushed. The documentary guy is crushed. But then they had, as part of the SOSA system, these beacons where, again, they knew that this whale this guy had marked in 2004 had been passing through this area. And so they went back and they listened to the time frame where in the past, each year, this whale's coming through. And the whale went through there, 0 sound. And they go, well, here's the deal. We don't know then if it's not your whale or if it just wasn't making noise. And so, again, the guy's like looking all bummed. They go, but. And he goes, what do you mean, but? They said during the exact same time period, over a different beacon, another 52 hertz whale was heard. And so they said, now we're looking at there's potentially 2 of them.
2.
And so
All right.
like what the thought, like what got this, I mean, yes, I was super intrigued and I wanted to like them to find this whale. But I started to think more about, animals and be it a hybrid, and hybrids come about for so many different reasons. Some of it being, human intrusion on a habitat when there's just, they can't move as much. If there's lack of possible mates, you see some of that go down. But the other thing, when we think about evolution and we think about mutations and we think about things that stick and things that don't stick, how many animals along the line have been like the 52 whale, where it's seemingly kind of on its own path? For whatever reason, either it looks slightly different, it sounds slightly different, it acts. I mean, there's something about that in there where then you just kind of go, yeah, I want to know more about, because obviously the animals that are here now are the ones who, evolution has seen fit, or not so much. I remember you had that argument on the one show about, best fit or whatever.
Right.
But the ones that are here now for a reason. And you go, how many of the others along the way that threw something out that was just a little bit different were just lost in time and didn't get followed the way that this 52 hertz whale did? They still think it's the hybrid and that the hybrid is throwing off a different sound.
Interesting.
But it was, to me, it was fascinating that it came out of the surveillance system, and it's been
That's
picked
so
up by
cool.
multiple scientists who are trying to figure out or get to the bottom of what exactly this is. So.
Oh, so cool.
Yep. So, Kirk, if you're looking for a
Awesome.
second career after being a naturalist, I do believe, in your free time, once you retire, you could probably pick through whale feces and make a living.
Yeah, there we go.
So,
Wow, that's your takeaway, huh?
Your face.
all right. Well, that's what I
Wonderful.
have for you. We're going to take a short break, and then Kirk has promised to make us squirm with whatever it is he's bringing to the table this week.
Probably. Yeah. Oh,
Awful.
interesting choice of words, Brett. Interesting choice of words. You shall see.
Oh, God.
See you in a minute. Strange by Nature podcast is brought to you by listeners like you who have joined the Society of Strange, our membership group on over at patreon.com/strangebynature. Society of Strange members can join at one of 3 different membership levels and help support the show, and also get some fun stuff like water bottle stickers or access to super secret content. So a thank you to those who have joined already to help make this podcast possible. If you haven't joined yet, we'll see you soon over at the Society of Strange at patreon.com/strangebynature. See you soon. Welcome back, you guys. Let's talk about tapeworms.
God,
No.
no.
No, I don't want to talk about tapeworms.
I did a report
Why?
on these in 4th grade. I hate them. Unbelievable.
Yes.
No, I don't want to.
I cannot believe that we haven't talked about tapeworms yet. I know both of you know a bit about tapeworms.
Yeah.
Obviously, Brett did that report in 4th grade we all read.
No.
No, none of us read that. Some of our listeners probably know a bit about them as well. But one of the things we'd like to do on the show is surprise each other. So the tapeworms that you're probably thinking about are not the tapeworms that I'm going to talk about.
Thank
I don't
God.
think.
Are yours
The
nicer?
kind of tapeworms you're probably thinking of are no. The kind of
course
tapeworms
not.
you're probably thinking about are like a human intestinal parasite that you can primarily get from eating raw or undercooked freshwater fish.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably.
They are strange indeed, and absolutely something one of us will talk about on the show someday,
Won't
but
be
that
me.
day
No.
is not today. So the tapeworm
Parasites,
I
the
want
thing
to talk
they
about
just
this
keep
week
giving.
Or taking.
is something called, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce it. Here it comes. Tania solium is the name of this tapeworm, and it is, well, it's really something. It can actually cause a couple of different diseases in humans, and I think this is really interesting. What kind of disease you get depends on whether you ingest the larvae or the eggs of the tapeworm, and basically they act different in the body.
What happened if you
pretty
eat
cool.
both?
Now-
Did you get both?
Oh, well,
Ooh.
then that you probably just wait for it.
God.
Oh, I hate that.
First up, how do they get in your body in the first place? There's 2 main ways. The main
2.
way is eating, for this particular species, is eating undercooked pork. Now, I literally have pork chops sitting in my fridge right at this moment. So don't think this has not been on my brain.
Eggs are larva,
while I was
buddy. Eggs are
researching
larva.
This topic.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, well, we'll find out. Well, actually, interestingly, you say that. If it was one, it would be larvae and not eggs, because it has to do with their biology. We'll talk about that. So
Would we see
the
them
Tania
moving?
solium larvae can hang out in pigs and infect them, and then when we eat the pigs, it gets passed on to us. Now, here's the good news: properly cooking your pork will completely eliminate the risk of getting these parasites, assuming they were even present in the first place, which for most of us listening, they're probably not.
Right.
Now, here's something I think is really weird. It is completely a human's fault if the pigs have the parasite at all. Pigs are only a partial host to the parasite. It turns out it cannot actually complete their entire life cycle within the pig because pigs are missing a certain enzyme that humans have in their body. So the furthest they can go in their life cycles to become larvae in the pigs, they actually must move on to a human host in order to continue the life cycle and survive. So that means is the only way pigs can get infected is not from other pigs, but rather from humans. And the only way that can happen is if pigs have access to human feces.
Okay. Jeez Louise.
That's not usually a situation that we run into in this country, but in parts of the world where human sanitation is not a given, there are ample opportunities for pigs to be exposed to human waste.
Ample.
Gross, but that's the reality of the situation. Yeah. So if a human goes to the bathroom outdoors and they are infected, their larvae can end up in the soil, water, or even in vegetation. If a pig drinks water that's contaminated with human waste, they can become infected. And as we know, in some parts of the world, untreated human waste is still emptied into rivers, right? So I said earlier, I guess, if a person goes to the bathroom outdoors, but it really, even in places with toilets, if the wastewater goes into the sewer, but that sewage water isn't treated and just goes right into waterways and pigs are drinking from those waterways, you can have the same issue. So it doesn't even have to be direct contact. And you can see how it may actually be easier than it seems for a pig to actually get infected in the first place. So I did say, when I talk about humans, though, there's two main ways to get it. One could be from eating that pork, but the other way also involves food, but not necessarily eating pork. It can actually be from any food. Eating any food that is contaminated, I'm sorry, I have to say this, contaminated with feces of an infected person can get you sick. Pretty nasty to think about, but basically imagine an infected person cooking your dinner, and maybe they didn't wash their hands after going to the bathroom, and well, there you go.
Is this a Typhoid Mary situation?
Infected.
I want to go back to looking
it
for
would
the
be
whale.
at that point, yeah.
Whoa.
So what happens if you get infected? I know that's what we're all really interested in and want to know, right? So
No.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
if you eat If you eat the larvae, you become a host with a tapeworm growing in your intestines.
Yeah.
This is the pretty typical, like, tapeworm, infestation thing. Kind of classic situation that I think a lot of us have heard about. These particular ones can grow between 2 and 7 meters long.
That is
That's
too long.
6.5 to 23 feet.
No.
In your intestine.
Why was I not warned before this show? I could have. Oh my gosh!
I told you this one was going to make you squirm. I did warn you.
I thought about having a snack after this. I don't want one now.
No, not unless
What
it's some
would
sort
be
of
the worst snack to have after this topic? Like
licorice.
Laffy Taffy?
Oh
licorice.
God.
All right.
The worst part is I have licorice just waiting for me.
Or a ham sandwich.
Ham sandwich, exactly. Now, this is really interesting biologically. Each segment of the worm actually has its own reproductive organs. So each segment can produce its own eggs, and each segment can produce thousands of eggs. Now, if you are infected, not only do you have the issue of having potentially 23-foot-long tapeworm in your intestines, you are also shedding thousands of eggs in your feces. So that's horrific.
I hate that.
But there's something even worse.
Oh, good.
There's
something
even worse?
worse.
What do you mean?
You
You already have a parasite that's taking nutrients and things away from you.
Well, I can see it.
What?
That's worse. That's what.
That is gross. But this is actually from a maybe not worse in the sense of grossness, but worse medically.
Oh God.
What if instead of eating the larvae, you end up consuming some of those eggs? So getting infected with the eggs of this particular tapeworm is bad. These eggs, these embryos of the tapeworm, do not stay in your intestines. They actually pierce through the intestines, and they can infect the rest of your body as well. In the worst.
No.
Are you okay, Brett? Are you okay?
Well, I mean,
you gonna make it?
Like multiple tapeworms heading out into any part of your body.
Well, we'll talk about it. In the worst situation, they can actually get into your central nervous system.
No.
And you end up with a disease called neurocysticercosis. And as the tapeworm develops, cysts form around them. And it's actually the cysts that cause most of the problems rather than the actual like tapeworm itself.
Oh, God.
It sounds like depending on where the cysts form and how your immune system reacts, you may have basically no symptoms, or things can get bad. Really, really bad. First up, you might experience headaches. Part of the reason why is that your brain may actually be swelling inside your skull because you have cysts with baby tapeworms inside your brain.
Why wasn't this a Halloween topic? My God.
Yeah.
Kirk, yeah.
Why?
Happy Halloween. The odds are we have lots of listeners.
April.
Maybe someone is listening on Halloween. If that's you,
I have a headache right now. I hope it's
congratulations.
not those
You're welcome.
things.
Oh, God.
Well, probably not those. 50 to 70% of people with this disease actually experience seizures. And while this is going on, remember, you have swelling in your brain or your spinal cord. So you can have memory problems or a whole host of neurological problems associated with the brain, spinal cord, and the nerves in general. Neurocysticercosis is actually the leading cause of acquired epilepsy and seizure disorders in the world.
Oh, good.
There are thought to be about 50 million people at any given time with neurocysticercosis in the world, which
That's
is
a lot.
It's a lot of people. Now, the most common regions, here we go. The most common reasons to see this infections are in Central and South America, Eastern Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, and I guess also some parts of Asia. So lucky for most of our listeners, this is not common in North America, the UK, or Australia, which covers a pretty large percentage of our listeners. So most of you are safe.
The collective sigh you hear is all of your listeners, right?
Right. Getting rid of the cysts and the infection can involve medicine or even surgery to remove them, which seems awful given the location in your central nervous system. Don't usually have people cutting into that.
No.
It is a pretty serious situation. 4 to 12% of people with the disease experience strokes due to the cysts in their brain, which naturally can lead to death. So worldwide, neurocysticercosis is actually the most common disease that affects the central nervous system. And like I said before, we're pretty safe here in North America, but naturally, it has been diagnosed in people who have traveled to other countries. So, travelers beware.
Kirk, I just got back
That's
from
what I
a
wanted
trip.
to talk about. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, okay. You were in Scotland. That's not really a concern.
Part of me feels like you should have gone first so we could have uplifted folks. To send them home with this is real rough.
You know, it's,
Isn't it?
We take turns going first. This is the luck of the draw. I do want to shout out to my sources this week. There's a Science Direct article called Neurocysticercosis from 2019. Pretty straightforward title there. And also an excellent article on Medical News Today called What is Neurocysticercosis?
It's terrible is what it is.
You want a pork chop?
Yeah.
I got pork chops. You guys in? Who's
No.
No?
I'm good.
You're lost.
Wash your hands.
You guys, that's it. I will be washing my hands. I'm hoping the people at the factory wash their hands and didn't just come back from a vacation in Eastern Europe or Central or South America. But awesome, you guys. Brett, thanks so much for being on, man.
Thanks
No
for
way,
being
man.
on,
Thank you
Brett.
both for having me. It is my pleasure, and hopefully I'll be back again at some point.
Yeah, maybe
Lots of fun.
maybe next time we won't do Parasite like that again, but I make
No
no
parasites.
promises.
Let's not.
I mean, I feel like maybe I should, if Brett is on again, I should make sure that we could all do parasites just to make him feel at home.
Gross.
That's awful.
Sounds terrible.
Oh my gosh. Hey, thank you everybody so
Thanks,
much. We've had
everybody.
a lot of new followers in the last month. I hope you guys are having a good time. Thanks for sticking around, and we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah. See y'all next week.
Laters.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.